Ladies and gentlemen, fellow MRTA members, good afternoon. It's good to be with you. I wish it were possible for me to be with you in person, but circumstances prevent me from being there. So this is our next best option. Welcome to the conference. The next several days you'll have an opportunity for very stimulating thinking, conversations, and after 2 years of being in quarantine, just being able to get out and be with fellow former educators is a big deal. So I wish you well in your upcoming discussions. In December of 2019, I met with a group of retired superintendents having a discussion around why the PSRS matters and looking at some of the assaults that were taking place across the state regarding what I characterize as undermining the public school retirement system. And I began to have conversations with some of these retired superintendents and looking at some of the data related to public education and the impact on the public school retirement system. And several of us put together a document that you may have seen. If you haven't, I would encourage you to take a look at that. Basically what we did is look at where Missouri stood in terms of a variety of factors in public education. And we went through the process of looking at issues around how money was being expended in this state and the impact that it was having on public education. And so we went through the process of looking again at a variety of data around the impact that public education was having in this state. We have 73% of classroom teaching in Missouri that's performed by teachers with at least 20 years of experience. 95% of Missouri teachers that have 15 years or more experience stay till retirement eligibility. So we begin to look at the impact of all of this. And so we went through this document and looked at several pieces of what I characterize as issues relating to public education. We then, a year ago, took that another step further and started looking at the issues that were confronting this state relative to low teacher pay, which we all know about. We rank 49th out of 50 states with an average salary we rank 45th at $50,870. When looking at statewide and national, compared to national data, the average salary across the United States is $64,000. So we're about $14,000 behind, on average, of the teachers being paid in the state of Missouri. The student expenditure ranked 34th at $11,685 compared to the national average of $13,597. Now you start thinking about that. We're right at $2,000 behind the national average in what we spend per kid in this state. And you start thinking about if each school district were to receive $2,000 per student, what all could take place to upgrade quality of services for the kids in this state. We could improve upon mental health. We can improve upon a variety of activities of supports for kids in this state. Numerous things that could be done. And oh, by the way, we could even think about raising teacher salaries. So this document, again, that we put together a year ago, the fall of 2021. And if you've not seen these documents, I would encourage you to look at those. But what we started doing is looking at where we are relative to what we pay for public education. And then I started looking at student performance data compared to national average. And what I began to find is that although we're on what I characterize as a race to the bottom in terms of what we expend for public education, for the most part, we are at or above national averages on how our kids perform. And we get to thinking about that. What's the variable? What's the difference here? The difference, in my opinion, and the opinion of many other educators across the state, is the quality of teachers in this state and the quality of instructional leadership provided by administrators. So although we're again, I characterize it as a race to the bottom in what we expend for public education. Our student performance measures are really at or above national average, and why is that? Again, it goes back to the fact that we have good teachers in this state. The other thing that we begin to look at is the economic impact that the public retirement system has on the activities across the state. And on the back of this colored sheet tells you how much money in retirement is being expended by each county in this state. There's a huge economic impact that is driven by the public school retirement system and our salaries in terms of our pensions. The other thing that we begin to look at is around the issue of why does it matter? One of the things that we are going to have to do, in my opinion, is to look at the whole spectrum of public education. If we just focus on our retirement and don't take into account what is happening to the public schools in this state, we're going to wake up one day and find ourselves in a situation where we have allowed our public school systems to erode to the extent that it's had an impact on our retirement system. One of the things that as an organization we can ill afford to do is to just focus on our retirement. The issues that we need to look at affect all of public education, not just our retirement. So we need to go through a shift of looking at the quality of instructional services provided to students across the state. Now, again, the bigger issue, we start looking at the numbers, and I won't read this to you. You can look at this in these two documents, but you get a clear sense of the fact that this state is not providing enough revenue for quality services to students in this state. Now, the real trick is going to be in terms of how do we decide how much money is expended for public education. And we need to go through the process of looking at the issue of public education is the greatest economic driver in this state for economic development. That public education drives a quality of life in each one of our communities across the state. So when we start looking at how do we begin to position ourselves to have an impact upon the policy decisions that impact upon our public schools and ultimately on our retirement system. And where do we go from here? Again, as I said twice already, if we just look at our retirement and if we are concerned about our pensions, I think we set ourselves up for criticism in that it becomes self-serving. That I want to protect my retirement, I want to protect your retirement, without looking at the bigger picture. The retirement system impacts upon the quality of services that our students receive, and it directly impacts upon student performance. That has to be the heartbeat of the message that we deliver. Now, how do we go about organizing ourselves to deliver the right message across this state? The first thing that needs to be done as an organization, and this is a great opportunity for this organization as we're going through this transition to new leadership, renewed energy around what our focus is. But where do we go from here? The first step in the process, in my opinion, is to look at the structure of the foundation of this organization. We have to go through the process of looking at our policies and procedures. Our board of directors is now going through that process of looking at where we are to focus on efficient organizational activities that impact upon how we organize and deliver services from this organization. We're going through the process of looking at, we've hired an auditing firm to go through the financial practices of this organization to make sure that we are effective and efficient in how we organize and expend our resources. We have to begin to look at our governance structure in terms of how do we organize ourselves, again with the focus on being effective and efficient in everything that we do. We are going to have to move to developing greater partnerships with other organizations. Uh, we have a membership of 23,000 people, and we have something that other organizations do not have. We have the numbers, we have people that live virtually in every community in this state. There are things that we can do that other organizations cannot do. But we're going to have to develop partnerships with other organizations, superintendents organizations, MSTA, MNEA, AFT, and other organizations around how we uh, get the message out around our concern for protecting the quality of educational services across this state. We're going to have to look at getting close to chambers of commerce, the Farm Bureau, and other organizations around the state to get at this is what is right about public education. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. The other thing that this organization is going through is developing a strategic plan. And Maria will be talking more about this during your discussion in the next day or two. But it's imperative that we have a game plan in terms of first of all, what are our values? What are the non-negotiables? What are the things that we will not compromise on? We clearly will state those in a strategic plan. We will then outline a mission of what is our mission, followed by what are our goals? What are the things that we want to accomplish? And that will be followed by the strategies around how we will accomplish certain goals. It will list timelines. It will list individuals who are accountable for following through on that. It becomes our playbook. And everyone in this organization will know where we're headed. They will be able to have measurable objectives in terms of knowing when we hit the mark or not. It will become a very intense roadmap. I call it a playbook around the things that are important to this organization and what we're going to do. That becomes critically important. It will also outline levels of accountability. Who's responsible for what? So the strategic plan will be unfolding in the next few months. That will give us a clear roadmap in terms of where we were headed. We need to move the position, again in my opinion, of this organization to go on offense. If we just sit back and wait for legislation or wait for policy events to occur within this state, we're going to always be on the receiving end and we're going to be reacting. We have got to move ourselves to the position that we are proactive and that we become very aggressive in attacking issues that impact upon public education and, of course, our retirement. We need to begin to address the issue of what is right about public education. In this state, we have a budget of 2022 of right at $34 billion. 20% of that budget goes to education, to elementary and secondary education, about $7.5 billion. 4% goes to higher education, 36% of that budget goes to social services, 9% to transportation, and so forth. The point of all this is that there is only so much money. So if we're going to advocate for more resources for public education, it's going to have to come from somewhere. This state is going to have to develop a plan around how we're going to support public education. We can ill afford to sit back and allow the current trends to continue. We are strangling public educational support and services that impact upon the quality of life issues in every community and for every citizen in this state. We can no longer allow ourselves to be what I characterize again as on a race to the bottom. We are going to have to do more for public education. At a time when the assaults on public education are mounting, the legislation that is coming around expanding charter schools, et cetera, are doing nothing more than eroding the support for public education. So again, we're going to have to move from a position of just waiting for things to happen to us to go on the offense. We're going to have to take the lead. What better group in this state is there to do that other than MRTA? The membership of this organization is about developing lesson plans, developing strategies for instruction, developing goals for learner objectives, and testing and those measurable objectives. This organization has the capacity to do that. No other organization can do that. So what we're going to have to be doing, again in my opinion, over the next few months is begin to develop our strategic plan, develop partnerships across this state to develop a bigger net, if you will, in terms of impacting upon the issues that affect public education. And we are going to have to be able to do that in a very effective and efficient manner. We, again, have the capacity to be able to do that. We are going to have to develop plans around how we communicate in each one of our communities with the local Lions Club, the Chambers of Commerce, the various organizations that are in Blue Eye, Missouri, that are in Kirksville, Missouri, that are in Pattonville, or anywhere else in this state. We are the only organization that have membership that lives in each one of these communities in this state. We are the only ones that can develop the instructional strategies to educate this state on the value and importance of public education that does impact on every citizen in this state. We are going to have to become proactive in our legislative process. We can no longer afford to wait till legislation is drafted and then react to it. We're going to have to get ahead of the game and begin to work with legislators in the off season, other than the legislative sessions, to begin to help craft legislation and begin to articulate what's good about it and what's bad about it, and develop effective strategies around how we are involved in the legislative process. And again, that goes back to developing partnerships with other organizations, but we in fact can lead the way in how we educate the citizens of the state. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time to get all of this put together. And I want to assure you that your board of directors is getting at this from the ground level up and looking at our policies, our procedures, looking at our finances, making sure that we have an effective and efficient financial accounting system, and that we know where every nickel is spent and are we getting our return from our investment. We are looking at all of the activities that affect this organization and how we organize and deliver services to not only you as members of this organization, but to the citizens of this state. I do wish you well in this conference. This is a great opportunity. As I have said, we have been pretty much sequestered for the last 2 years, and getting out and meeting our colleagues is a great, great opportunity. I want to leave you with the thought of just understanding how important this organization is. We are the only organization that can carry the water to deal with the issues around some of these things that impact upon public education. Just a quick observation. I keep hearing about the issue around we want to move to a 401k plan instead of our PSRS system. And as members of our boards of education are being told that you only have to devote 5% of the school district's budget to a 401k plan as opposed to the 14.5% that's going to PSRS. What they're not telling you, two things. First of all, they're not telling you that if you go with the 401k plan, you're going to have to go with Social Security, which is going to bump up the amount that you're going to contribute to 6.5%. So that's going to get you close to the 14.5% that we're now contributing to our retirement system. The other piece of this is that the 401k plan does not do anything like what the PSRS does. And in these papers that we have written, there's a good breakdown in terms of how the public school retirement system works and how we're generating a great return on the investment. Stay in touch, continue to visit with the leadership of your association. Members of our staff are eager to help. There are a lot ahead of us, but the important role that we play in this state is absolutely critical to the delivery of quality services for the students in this state. Take care, my friends, and stay in touch.